Mark here, Tech Stack. We're super excited about the future promise of Agentic AI. I think we're going to get to the point. So we service technology companies, so everything I'm going to say is in context to B2B technology companies and how those companies can use Agentic AI experiences to work with their customers and of course, help growth and profitability. But we're not far away. We're probably 18 months away from getting to this kind of utopian goal of having 90% of a team member's time being in front of a customer. So if you're implementing software, 90% of your time will be in front of the customer. If you're in sales, 90% of your interactions will be face-to-face human interactions, not behind the scenes stuff. And any role within your business support, anybody that is a customer-facing role, which for most companies, that's at least 50% of their team, should be customer-facing roles. 90% of their time will be in front of the customer, and we think that's going to be aided with agentic autonomous agents. So the difference between autonomous and conversational agents: autonomous agents just do stuff. They're typically just triggered off an event and will do a thing that a human would otherwise have to do. And we'll give you lots of examples. That is compared to what we're seeing a lot of today, which are more conversational agents. So the whole Gen AI phenomenon in the last couple of years, you type in a prompt, you get a response. That is a conversational kind of experience, but it's still up to the user to kind of prompt. But with autonomous, the prompts will be performed automatically by triggers or events that happen in the system. And we'll give you lots of example. All right, so we'll see that we'll switch very soon. Probably the biggest thing that's going to be holding companies back, to be quite frank, is their information architecture. So to go from kind of conversational or Gen AI kind of experiences to agent-based experiences that are autonomous, the thing that's going to be lacking is information architecture. A lot of organizations today have a proliferation of apps. In the last 10 years, we've been accumulating hundreds of apps. Every company has probably 100 apps running. The main system of records, you're getting some, replace the logos you see here with your logos, right? But you're seeing a CRM platform, an accounting platform, an outbound platform, a marketing platform, a support platform, a project platform. Those are all systems of record, right? There's a lot of data. Should be some good integrity with that data. It's very, very structured. It's forms on tables kind of experience. And then you also have more engagement tools, systems of engagement. So you've got like your word processing tools, your email tools, your video conferencing tools, your conversational tools like Slack or Teams. Those are all unstructured. Now, ideally, all of that unstructured and structured data will have I guess what we used to call a primary key or whatever, but they would all be related to either a contact or an account. So that could be a user in your system. It could be a contact at a customer. It could be a prospect versus a customer. Ideally, you would be able to organize all of these different sources of information, to an account, contact, and or user. Within the system. So what we're seeing here, and then you overlay all the other apps that you have running, right? So there's tons of other apps you'll be using today. These are the main systems of engagement and the main systems of record. The problem I think we're going to run into is this: the information architecture completely sucks, right? So you have each one of these vendors are going to be vying for the agentic experience. So undoubtedly we're going to see it already. That Salesforce is going to drive with their agent force. Zendesk is going to have their agent, because obviously customer support is an area where I think there's a great use case for agentifying the experience for customers. But every single one of these vendors is going to come out with their agent. So we had app proliferation 10 years ago. We're just going to have agent proliferation now. And the problem is you're not going to have any orchestration across agents. You're going to need to have like an MCP client that will orchestrate all the things that are happening across. And ideally, you have some sort of tie between, like, for example, a customer in Zendesk is an accountant in Salesforce. A customer in Sage Intacct is an account in Salesforce. Ideally, you have that kind of integrity. in order to pull the information and for these agentic autonomous agents to do their thing. And ideally, you can relate all the conversations and all the meeting recaps and all that stuff from Zoom for a specific contact that exists in Salesforce. I would challenge this is unlikely in most organizations today. Every company we go to, they have all these tools. There's no tie between the records across these systems. But this is information architecture is going to be critical here. All we're going to have is an app proliferation that we had 10 years ago is going to happen with agents, and you're not going to get ahead whatsoever. And we're already running into data sovereignty issues. I talked about agent proliferation. We're seeing vendors hold data hostage. Most recently Slack, or specifically Salesforce locking down Slack API. Imagine the wealth of information that is sitting in your Slack channels today and not allowing your LLMs to consume Slack is insanity, right? So how are you supposed to allow an agent to analyze information about a customer? Let's say you have a customer health check coming up, right? Ideally, you have an agent that can go through all the records that are sitting in CRM and support all the documents that are sitting in Google Drive, all the conversations that you've had in Zoom, all the conversations that about a customer in Slack, and take all that information and create an output. Not only create an output, but action that output, right? So schedule the right thing, or create the right document or whatever. And so we're not quite there because we're, I think, seeing a lot of this kind of sovereignty issue. We're seeing vendors pretending that they own the data that's in their clouds. So I think that is certainly a big issue that we're going to have to contend with, and it's only going to get worse if you've got agent proliferation. I think the other thing that we all got to get ready for is the cost of running these agents. It will be a lot cheaper than having humans, but we're going to start seeing, and we're seeing it already. Salesforce as one example, not the only vendor, and certainly we're Microsoft kind of centric world. Microsoft's also increasing their pricing, but we're definitely going to see vendors, I guess, demonstrate a little bit more control over the environments, and specifically around licensing and license costs. So I think we got to get ready for that. I think the one thing I really, really like, I'm going to flip over and show you kind of what it looks like in the Microsoft world. I think Microsoft's working with they're right now demonstrating to be a software publisher, a vendor that I think operates at a different kind of level because they're partner enabled. I think we're seeing more of an openness attitude across all their products, and allowing companies to orchestrate agents across non-Microsoft platforms with Microsoft platforms, and not putting in restrictions so far anyways, and hopefully this remains true, but not putting in restrictions when you're building all these agents. And what I really love is that Microsoft's actually the only vendor that can tie all the structured data sources with all the unstructured data sources. And I'll give you a quick example of that right now. And they really make it easy with the Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry to build agents that can be put to use. So here's tech stack. So Web 2.0, forms on tables, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, you need to have a system of record that has data integrity that creates transactions. So here's tech stack. We can track everything about an account, everything about the customer contacts within that account. We know exactly what's going on. We have all the email communication that goes back and forth between anybody in the organization and anybody in your organization. So all that unstructured information, all the meeting recaps, all that has kind of a point of integrity. We've got transactions that we're generating, so invoices, subscription data. All of that information exists, right, in a very classic, forms on tables design, right? All the sales information, all the product information, all the help desk information, all sitting in one database called Dataverse, right? So all that stuff is happening transactionally. But we've also kind of linked all that to unstructured data. So we have, all the kind of OneNote information that exists, all the documents exist in SharePoint sites that are linked to that customer. We have, communications here with, various one-on-one chats or Teams chats, all linked to that customer. So that becomes really important when you're starting to build agents. So if I look at the Copilot Studio experience here, which you don't need to use, you can use other Microsoft tools like, as I mentioned, AI Foundry and all that kind of stuff. But if I were to take a very simple agent, RFP response, I want to be able to create an agent that automatically replies to RFPs. Very simple design, right? You can name the thing. You can do some orchestration, which I'll show you in a sec. You can define which response model you want to use. So 4.0 is a better narrative than the than the newer release right now that we have available as part of Copilot Studio, which is 4.1 Mini. So you can decide which model to use. You can provide instructions. So this is a prompt kind of engineering thing. I think one of the big issues with generative AI and expecting users to be able to create prompts, it's better if you just engineer the prompt one time. So the one advantage of creating an agent is you can build the perfect prompt. You don't need to rely on the user to create that prompt over and over again. The agent allows you to engineer that prompt perfectly. You can utilize the researcher and analyst capabilities that are now part of Copilot Studio to go deep on data. You can define the knowledge sources. What I love about knowledge here is that you can use SharePoint documents. So you can do folders, you can do documents, you can create as much knowledge sources as you want. And those knowledge sources can also be structured sites as well. So you can see you have native connection to Salesforce, Dynamics, ServiceNow, Dataverse, the underlying database underneath Dynamics. All that can be created as a knowledge source for, in this case, my RFP response. With RFP response, I'm more likely to actually just use unstructured data sources like documents and SharePoint sites and stuff like that. It also allows you to create tools. So a tool could be to create a team meeting. I might want to create a team meeting to discuss the RFP response after the agent actually creates the first response. You may need to gather the InfoSec team or the product team to make sure that we get through all the questions that are there. So you can create team meetings as one example of a tool. You can coordinate and orchestrate other agents. So this is a little bit of that agent-to-agent protocol stuff that Satya is going on about these days, where you're connecting multiple MCPs and/or multiple agents into your agent and consuming all that at once. So orchestration's there. Very, very cool stuff. What I love about Copilot Studio as well is the ability to actually publish to various channels here. So you can probably our favorite channel to publish to is Teams. For us, the future will be in Teams. Teams will become the kind of the place where all the interactions will exist, whether that be autonomous agents telling you they did a thing, or if you wanted to prompt an agent, you can do that in Teams. So here you see that you can publish to Microsoft channels like Teams and Microsoft 365. And of course, Microsoft's also building lots of other capabilities here like Twilio and Slack. So you imagine the power there, right? Of having all these external systems being able to access autonomous agents. So we really like where Microsoft's going with this. I think the biggest challenge that we have with tech stack is creating a rinse and repeat model. The portability of these agents isn't quite there. And it's not that we can't publish these as products, but I think more of the problem is that information architecture varies so significantly from customer to customer that it makes it a little bit harder for us just to roll out the agent and expect it to customers to be able to use it from day one. I think we'll get there, but right now, especially with Copilot Studio agents, we don't really have that ability to make these agents portable as you would, kind of publishing software where we can deploy the thing and it'll just work. There's still a little bit of tweaking and coordination. Like the triggers need to be certain things based on certain business processes, all that kind of stuff. As much as we're trying to standardize, we're not quite at the point where we can make these things completely portable. But what I do like about this model is we don't, as tech stack, don't need to charge you anything for access to this stuff, right? By just using the platform, replacing all the overhead you have with all your other tools, your CRM, your accounting, your marketing automation, support, and centralizing those tools under one roof, you're first going to save a ton. Like, a lot of our customers save upwards 50 to 80% of their licensing costs, but you're also down to one agent. So you might have multiple agents within. So when I say one agent, it's one agent platform. So you're able to basically do everything through either Copilot or Azure's AI Foundry, and I'll just create new ones yourself, and you can publish agents every week. You can do as much as you want, but all that information architecture lives in one place with a full security model represented there as well. So really excited about what's happening out there right now. And I think, if we fast forward a year, I think the experience that customers are going to be having with tools, it's going to be very, very different. And I think, whether that's going to relieve is a lot of the change management issues that people have today, moving from platform A to platform B, those are going to go away, mostly because the users are just going to be interacting with a prompt, or the system's going to do stuff for them. So I'll leave you with that. Thanks very much. And if you have any questions, give us a shout.